Here are some likely indicators that your child who is in kindergarten or early years may have autism. One of the characteristics you might find is that they struggle with imitation. So often when you take your child to the doctor, they might find different instruments that a doctor is using. And then maybe when you buy this sort of toys for your children, a child who has got autism may struggle to imitate, because a child who doesn't have autism and who's not struggling with imitation might be able to copy the doctor, take the stethoscope and try and listen. But maybe for a child who has got autism, they might take the stethoscope and either wiggle it around, or maybe decide they're going to swing it, or maybe decide they're just going to drag it, or even just chew it. Let's take something a little simpler, such as when the children see us cooking. We expect that if we give them a toy like this, then they would copy what they see mommy doing in terms of cooking, maybe turning off the gas. But a child who has got autism may not use these toys this way. They may even choose to line them up in a line like this, or maybe bind them together or drive them around, but may not necessarily imitate. A child who also struggles with autism or has autism might not be able to point at something that they want. If they want something, they might not be able to say, "Give me, this is what I want," and point at it. But they might not also be able to look at something that you're pointing at. So you might point, but they might not be looking. Look, Peter, look. But they might not look. But a child who doesn't have autism, when you say look, then they look at what you are pointing at. They may struggle with waving goodbye. So when you say bye, see you later, mommy's gone to work, they might not wave back at you. They might also struggle with clapping their hands, saying a song like, "If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands." And you would expect that the other child would also copy you as a teacher or as a mommy, or even copy the other children. But a child who struggles with autism might not clap their hands together with other children. A child who has got autism avoids eye contact. So you might be talking to them, but they avoid eye contact. So if you call their name Peter, they'll just continue doing whatever it is that they were doing, play with their own little toys, but they might not look up at you. And they also might not respond to their name, Peter. It's not because they can't hear you, it's just because they haven't learned to recognize that they need to respond. This is the name they need to respond to, and oh, that's my name, and I need to look in the direction that my name is being called. They might not respond to their name, and they also avoid eye contact, will not look up at you. Even when they are asking for something, they might just hold your hand. If they want you to give them something, then they might just take your hand and ask you for that thing, rather than point or even look at you and reach out for that item. They also struggle with following simple instructions, such as "give me." Sometimes they struggle with that. And that's why when they go to school and the teacher says, "Okay, let's do a beading activity," and all you need to do is just bead the piping wire through the bead, they might struggle with that coordination, being able to have put it in, and now I need to hold here, and therefore now pull the bead that way. This may actually be a struggle for them, following instructions. So if they're struggling with following instructions at home, they will also struggle with following instructions in school. Another characteristic is you might find that a child repeats what you say. When you say, "How is your mommy?" they say, "How is your mommy?" And they say, "Come here, Peter." And they say, "Come here, Peter." "Would you like an apple?" Would you like an apple? Now, for some parents whose children might be non-verbal, which means they have not started speaking by the age of 3, age of 4, they've not started speaking, this particular condition is called echolalia. Their characteristic is called echolalia, where you repeat what the other person is saying, but it is not communication. Yes, their mouth is able to form the words properly, but that does not necessarily mean that they are communicating. Because remember, communication is both receptive, you have receptive language, and expressive language. So are they able to receive instructions from you and follow through on the instructions? Are they also able to express what they need? So both is what you need for communication: receptive language and expressive language. And that's why sometimes children who are nonverbal get very frustrated because they want to communicate, they want to tell you what's going on in their minds, but they can't. Sometimes children who have got autism flap their hands. That's another characteristic you might find. Or they might rock back and forth. Sometimes you might find that they like smelling things, including people. So sometimes they might come and smell you. Or smell the food before they eat it. And if they don't like the smell, they will not eat it. They're very particular about the food that they eat. If you find that your child was playing with a certain toy and then you say, hey, Jane, it's time to tidy up. And you say it again, come on, it's time to tidy up. And then maybe when you see that they're not following your instructions, you decide to take it away. And they break down into tantrums and crying, but it doesn't just last for a little bit, but goes on and on for over 5 minutes, and they are screaming and they are so angry. That could be an indicator, because children with autism don't like change. And that's change. You've just asked them to stop what they're doing, and now you want them to do something else. They absolutely love familiarity and routine. So if in the morning we wake up and we remove our pajamas and go and brush our teeth and go and put on our clothes for school and then have breakfast, they want that routine maintained and they thrive in routine. But when you move things around and you change them, that is so difficult for a child who has autism. Now, a child with autism might also want to play alone, not necessarily with other children, but might just want to play alone. And sometimes, remember, as we said, they might not necessarily use the activities that you're giving them in a very logical manner. But sometimes they don't want anybody else to take their things, and if they do, they're very upset and may grab the things away from them. They might just want to play on their own. And sometimes they might struggle with something as simple as a puzzle. So moms and dads, this would be a great thing for you to do. Pick some simple puzzles and do this with your child at home. This is great preparation for school, because then they are learning to see the different shapes and they can be able to match them. But a child who is struggling with autism might not be able to do this easily. What you can do as a mom or a dad is actually point out and say, hey, put this here. And initially they will need you to guide them, and then after a while they'll be able to put them on their own. And you can even say the sounds with them. Put it here, and let them do it on their own. Children with autism may also walk on their tiptoes, because their feet are very sensitive, so they walk on their tiptoes. And sometimes they may cover their ears, because remember, if a child's senses are very heightened, it means that their brain is interpreting the smallest sound to be really, really loud. So sometimes you're wondering, you start singing and your child covers their ears. Or you go to church, the music is loud and they cover their ears. It's because their senses are heightened. However, if their senses are not heightened and they are hypoactive, And sometimes the music might be so loud and you're wondering, why on earth does my child turn the volume to full? It's because maybe their senses are dull and they could be hypoactive. Sometimes children who have autism also struggle to settle for even 5 minutes. They tend to be all over the place, lots of energy, and that could be another indicator. Now, please remember, your child does not have to have all these characteristics. They could just have one, two, or even three, a combination of four. And maybe just one might not be enough for you to start wondering or whether your child has got autism. The best recommendation is for you to discuss, just take note of some of these things that you have observed in your child, and then discuss them with your doctor, discuss them with your pediatrician, or even better, if you can find a special needs teacher or a specialist who you can be able to discuss this with, please do so.